Welcome to Tech Rainmakers with Ryan Esparza. Ryan is CTO of Esprigas, which is the third largest B2B gas company in the US. He has an amazing and diverse experience from healthcare to hospitality to now B2B gas supply and building technology products and solving large business problems using technology. But before we hear from Ryan about his professional journey, he has been on an exciting and very, very interesting trip to Antarctica. So this whole, I think, December and January, Ryan, is that right?
Yeah, it was a pretty long trip. Yeah, I guess why it's relevant is because we've been trying to record this session for a while, and then I leave and have no service for quite a while. So thanks for your patience and putting up with me while I was on the other side of the world.
Okay, so how was the trip for you, in the sense that these are trips which kind of are life altering in some way or the other, or at least they alter the way you think. So how was this trip for you? What were some of the big things that have stayed with you after this trip or from this trip?
Definitely. Yeah. I think, the way we describe it, my wife and me, the only way to aptly describe it is that it kind of felt like we were on a different planet, or the set of a Star Wars movie or something, because the landscape, the wildlife, everything was so surreal, unlike anywhere we had been. So we didn't exactly get the cultural experience because there's nobody there, but otherwise the actual experience was breathtaking across the board. We traveled inside the Antarctic Circle, was kind of a big point of the trip, and so we were it's currently summer there, and so the sun never set, so literally 24 hours of sunlight. It kind of lowered on the horizon, but that was about it, and stayed light the entire time. But it was a pretty epic, pretty amazing trip for sure.
So you were on the ship for the most part, or were you on the land as well? Did you get to set foot on the land?
Yeah, we definitely made a continental landing. So the way it kind of worked is we made our way to the very southern tip of South America, got on a ship. We were at sea for 2 days before seeing land, went another day farther south to cross the Antarctic Circle, and then kind of made our way back on the ship. And every day we would do 2 excursions of some sort. So we would get in little Zodiac boats and go make a landing on land and explore and see penguin colonies or seals or different wildlife. Or to just kind of a cruise around a bay in those little boats and see humpback whales, wow. Again, more seals, lots of penguins, but literally, humpback whales 5 feet from the, little 10-person inflatable raft, kind of a little intimidating at times, but overall just an amazing experience. So really, really felt the power of kind of the untouched world a little bit. We did some research afterwards to just kind of figure out, because you're looking at this landscape and it's like literally nobody has been here is what it feels like. And 2 things. One, we did some research, and turns out, yes, not a lot of people have been there. In 2017, I believe was when they just passed 1 million people in recorded history that have been to Antarctica. So if you do the math, that's less than 0.01% of the world population. Wow. So that's pretty neat. But the other thing that we were so amazed by and fascinated is that how well the different countries around the world have come together to preserve and protect Antarctica. So there were a ton of protocols and regulations, including all of our clothing, bags, everything like that had to be bioscreened. So they literally, with tweezers, were going through any threads that could have a seed or something, some foreign material that would have been planted. And then they vacuumed all of our clothing. Every time you went to get on or off the ship, you had to kind of do this bath in this solution. So it was, that was a really, really impressive and kind of encouraging for the future of Antarctica piece of the trip.
Wow. Oh, that's really interesting. So now let me bring you back to your world.
To the real world, to the
Yeah.
real world. Yeah, let's come back.
That was real. I mean, but yeah, we are back here. So
Yeah.
tell us more about your journey over the years through various industries, and what is that one theme or rhythm you have seen in technology space that is there throughout, if there is any, is that?
Yeah, sure. No, and thanks for the intro. I think you made my career sound really, really good. Put it very eloquently. I've been extremely fortunate to have worked for some pretty large, well-known brands. Started my career in e-commerce for the Home Depot, and have worked for Intercontinental Hotels Group, largest at the time, largest hotel chain in the world. I'm not up to date with my stats there. A really large company here in the US called Cox Communications, and kind of in very different roles, from e-commerce to newspaper publishing to innovation and travel to healthcare, to then now gas, right? Industrial, medical, beverage gas, atmospheric gases. And, the one thing that I think is kind of a common thread throughout is really just the importance and need to focus on the end customer, whomever that is, right? And be kind of outward in focused to deliver the right products using technology. So many times we as technologists, my nature is, okay, super cool. What can we build and then bring it to the masses? And the thing that I've learned over my career is just the importance of always making sure you're connected with the end user, the customer, whether that be an internal customer, an external customer, if you're selling a product or a service, whatever that might be, to help influence and drive the technology you're using, not just technology for technology's sake.
Wow. So how can you give us some examples of how this has kind of differed in any two industries that you can think of at this time?
Sure. Yeah, I think while I was spending time at Intercontinental Hotels Group, we worked on and launched the first mobile key in the world. And the need was very, very clear, in that customers, the experience that customers had in the areas where this particular brand was getting low marks, or folks were asking for something different, is if you look throughout the entire travel journey, they were starting by being able to book something online. They were able to rent a car and show up and get in said car and drive away without waiting in line. And then they would get to these hotels very often, and they would go stand in a line. And they would go stand in a line to do what? To give information that they've already given online, to receive a physical key that was their entry into the room. And so for these avid travelers, business travelers, things like that, that were on the road all the time, it's kind of a frustrating experience, or an experience where they kind of longed for more a little bit, because they had become accustomed to a certain user experience or customer experience throughout their travel journey. And then they got here and it was a disjointed experience. So that kind of led us to the first mobile key. These are the days before the iPhone had NFC, before the proliferation of apps, and you couldn't just walk up to a door and hold your phone up. So there were still flip phones and fun stuff like that. And so it was actually a really interesting project and experiment, because it taught me two things. One, again, this intense focus on customer experience, but then also this aspect of sometimes the marketplace isn't ready for the technology that you're bringing to market. And in our case, it was a phenomenal technology. It was probably a little too early. Consumers wanted it, but just there was this technological innovation on the cusp, bringing the NFC to the iPhone technology that was going to totally change the ability to do that. I'm trying to think other experiences. Well, I'll talk a little bit about Esprigas, right? And bringing some of the learnings from the past to this industry. because I think the interesting learning here for me, being now 8 months in, is this industry. We're not talking about using NFC in your phone to do something super revolutionary with packaged gas, right? That's just not where this industry is. But if you, again, apply those learnings from IHG in those days of what technology is the right technology to introduce now, what can we learn from other industries that are maybe a little further ahead on the innovation curve, like, I was doing e-commerce at Home Depot. I don't even want to say how many years ago now. It makes me feel old. A long time ago, let's put it that way. And when I come to this industry, and one of the things we're talking about quite a bit is e-commerce and the role and importance and future of e-commerce in this industry. And then leveraging, down the line, okay, so pulling from kind of the NFC and all of that, or even different industries with where customer expectations are starting to change or have changed completely, with the Amazon effect of, hey, when I order something, I want to see where it is. A, I don't want to pay for shipping, which is totally unrealistic, of course. B, I want to see where it is at all times, and I want updates every step along the way. So how can we pull these experiences from different industries, apply the lens of the expertise of what we know about the gas industry, empathize with the end customer to build the right experience at the right time using technology, right? Talking about e-commerce, if we leapfrogged ahead and went to mobile commerce immediately, maybe that's good, but maybe this particular industry isn't necessarily ready for that. So I'll stop there. I know I'm kind of going on quite a bit.
So that's interesting. So you talked about one innovation which was groundbreaking, but the base technology was not ready for it. And then you talked about this, which is more like you pick up something which is already existing and then change it and use it in this industry. So how many times has that really worked for you, that you kind of use something somewhere and then you moved on to the other industry and you could use the same thing in the other industry? Does that really work, or do you have to really rethink everything that you take a step into a new domain?
Yeah, I would say the core tenets definitively are transferable, right? The technology, the underlying technologies, actually, there's a lot of similarities across the board, being able to kind of leverage some of the learnings from, like we said, e-commerce, the individual technologies like NFC or whatever it might be, potentially barcode scanning. All of that is okay, but I think the piece that transcends no matter what industry is kind of back to the beginning, which is focused on empathizing with the end customer to discover what is important to them and how technology can be brought to solve that need. And I think that above all else is kind of the one tenet that is exactly the same across the board. Technologies are going to differ by industry, like we mentioned. Some industries are more forward thinking and or have a different customer expectation, and kind of being careful to understand the customer need. And like I said earlier, not just do technology for technology's sakes, but to actually understand the need so that we're delivering the right product at the right time for folks.
So what I'm hearing again and again is empathizing with the customer, solving the customer's problem. I'm not hearing too much about technology. So, do the people that work with you, your team members, the young ones that join the team, are they coming ready with that understanding that it's important to understand what the customer is looking for rather than just knowing what the flashy tech is today? So what has your experience been with the people who join in, or your team members? How ready are they with this understanding, or is that something that is seriously lacking?
Great question. I think it doesn't come naturally necessarily. I don't think it's taught in computer science programs. Don't quote me on this. I haven't done the research, but just from my experience, I don't remember necessarily being taught this. And this was something that I was super fortunate to have learned while on the job at one of the jobs we mentioned earlier. I think so. A, I don't think it comes naturally. B, I don't think it's taught nearly enough. And so no, I don't think folks come in with this knowledge. My team is probably super tired of hearing me continue to re-emphasize this point, talking about empathizing with the customer and all of that. But I do think and have a little bit of hope, not that it's a dire situation, but I think that the up and coming generation, whichever letter we're on right now, just with everything that they have experienced in their life, and the things that have happened since the time they've been born. I was just having this conversation with my daughter the other day about, when she was born, there's been a lot of kind of turmoil and heavy stuff to deal with. And so, take it as a small sample set, but she and her friends are incredibly connected with each other and others. And I think for all the bad sides of social media, there's also this expanding and opening of the world to these generations, the digital natives that have grown up with it, that I think, at least in my daughter's subgroup and her friends and some of the folks we're hiring, has brought this extra level of thinking that is asking them to question, why, and or empathize with other folks and really see a bigger picture than I necessarily had coming out of school, where I was just myopically focused on this, get the degree in this, and apply it. However, their horizons have been expanded quite a bit because of technology.
So how did you do it, Ryan? Because you just said yourself, we came out with blinders on and we did this and did this and did this, but you have built that ability to understand the pulse of the customer. So how has it happened for you? How has that journey who has been responsible for it, or has that been just your own effort towards that side?
That's a great question. I have to think about that. I think two things immediately come to mind when you ask that. First is a little bit of a confession. I think it was a little bit born out of necessity, in that I didn't go the conventional track and continue with my CS degree. I kind of got out of that while in college and had a liberal arts degree in something completely different. However, technology I was still super passionate about and kind of knew it, I guess, better than the average person. And so part of it, I think for me, was starting with, I wasn't going to be this amazing developer building amazing products myself and hands-on or whatever. But the niche that I found and where I just kind of naturally fit was I could understand and speak the tech, but also understand the business by nature of kind of having this varied degree life of having changed to 3 different majors. And we don't need to get into any of that during this conversation. But a kind of niche emerged of being able to talk the tech talk, but at the same time, talk the business talk and be that conduit in the middle. So I kind of lived in the middle world. That was number one. The second piece is just having kind of amazing mentors in general. I had bosses who really challenged me to think outside the box, and specifically in that role challenged me to do more, to really go focus on the customer side, which at this time were all internal customers within the company I was working. They weren't external customers, and wasn't even thinking it through that lens. And that opened up some amazing opportunities to get formal training in this, and design thinking process kind of really came to life through one of those recommendations from a prior boss and mentor.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So how has design thinking kind of helped you? Because it's very difficult for techie to connect that to, as soon as you say design, you think of big architectural marvels. You don't think of, or maybe a product nicely packaged, and you think of Apple, but you don't think of design thinking and tech at the back end, how did they connect for you?
Yeah, for me, it again came back to the why are we doing this? Kind of the Simon Sinek video, Start With Why, about what is the core need we're trying to get at. And so design thinking does a brilliant job, and there are a ton of other frameworks and processes to go through, but design thinking does a great job of focusing on empathizing with the I'll say end customer, but to empathizing to discover what the actual core need and problem is. So the exercises, as you really go through them, pull out and sometimes uncomfortably so make you focus on empathizing to get to the core need of what we're talking about, to strip back the technology, to strip back the I said I wanted X and you gave me X, and really get to I said I wanted Y, X, you gave me Y. You gave me Y because you understood that X wasn't what I wanted. That was just how I was articulating it. Y was the core need at the end of the day, and being able to pull out insights about the core need of what somebody wants, to really innovate and think outside the box to deliver against that. So, and many times technology is what ends up being the delivery mechanism for those insights.
Yeah, and we are becoming more and more, the world is becoming more and more about that. A lot of our final, needs are being kindly, they're being satisfied by technology, which were not earlier being met. So it has been 8 months with Esprigas now, and I can see that you came from a different industry, you had your learning curve. So can you share with us one example of a problem you came across and, probably you could solve it through your design thinking or empathizing with customers, so that we can see, yeah, it does work, right? So.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first one that comes to mind is one I've already mentioned, which is just in this industry, folks wanting a different ordering experience across the board. So, some of and it's not always black and white, which it isn't here as well, which is also this importance of what we're doing and what we're focused on is trying different things based on these insights we've uncovered or hypotheses we've made. Again, the Amazon effect, but bringing back this, if you kind of read the industry trades, and a lot of the conversation right now, like I mentioned before, is around e-commerce. But at the end of the day, it's really about convenience and meeting the customer where they are. And what we're hearing from them is giving them options for what is most convenient to them through this ordering process. And there's a couple different opinions and camps in that based on what we've heard. And so we're testing multiple things. One is obviously e-commerce. One is heavily weighted on predictive analytics, getting out there. But the overall need, I think, and pieces that we pulled out is this need for more and more self-service. And I don't necessarily want to talk to somebody. We built a chatbot as well to kind of save that same problem set. But I don't necessarily want to talk to somebody to do routine actions, to look up an order, to understand where it is. And so following the customers through the entire life cycle with that lens of where's the best value add to use technology to make this more convenient for them when the stated desire is, I'm used to this experience in the rest of my life. How do I bring that to my work life as well in ordering gas?
Okay, so we are coming to that, that it's all about digital transformation. So and it is a buzzword. A lot of people don't understand it, but a lot of people do use it. So what do you think digital transformation really is, and how does it work in your industry or any other industry that you have been part of?
Yeah, I mean, that is the apt word for exactly what we're talking about, is transforming this industry, this business, if you will, using technology, using digital means. But when I look at this industry, it's everything we just talked about, right? If you think of how things were ordered, and in the past, I won't necessarily say still, but in many places, right, it was carbon paper where you wrote and you had the yellow and the pink, and one got this and somebody else got this, and kind of taking that into, kind of the first phases of some sort of digital ordering, to all the way transforming and getting transformative with some of the things talked about, like predictive analytics, saying rather than you even having to place an order, me sending you an alert that says, hey, you're probably running low on gas or whatever it might be. Would you like to order now? Yes or no? Similarly, having kind of IoT devices out there. So not even just implying, not implicitly saying yes, but explicitly knowing you are out of gas. Would you like to order now? So looking at all of those technologies, but I think we get too hung up on, and I went immediately there, sorry, but talking about IoT and all these super fancy things. Digital transformation starts super simply, right? In the healthcare industry, when I was there, honestly, it was digitizing timesheets was a massive, massive form of digital transformation, because folks were sending in over 1 million faxes a year.
Wow.
With a doctor's handwriting of numbers on a timesheet that then took a bunch of people to sit there and try and figure out what they actually were, right? So digital transformation in that industry really looked like, okay, how do I digitize timesheets? You went in and took that to, again, to the hospitality industry and said, okay, digital transformation is this, it'd be laughed out of the room, right? We're talking about using your cell phone as a room key. And here you're talking about just creating a simple form online to do timesheets. So it is very industry specific, but I think folks too often get hung up on the big, sexy technology, as opposed to really just looking at what is the right thing for this industry, and that's okay. And that is still digital transformation. A lot of savings internally, a lot of opportunity to focus on your customer more, and at the end of the day, provide a better experience.
Wow. So, so given this, what do you think is the next big thing in your industry or in technology space as such?
No, it's a great question. We had a conversation earlier this week reminding me of, we were looking at some other study that had a 10-year roadmap for this company. And I'm like, 10-year roadmap for technology just seems crazy.
Too much.
Because of, like, how can you predict anything 10 years out unless you're a futurist, which is a whole different conversation. But so kind of being narrowly focused for this industry, I do think it's a lot of the technologies I just mentioned. So really focusing on starting all the way at the very beginning, from how do I actually order my gas, be it using IoT to never actually need to order said gas because it's explicitly telling Esprigas or others that I'm approaching being out of gas or not, using super predictive and prescriptive analytics to place an order automatically or initiate some kind of trigger. All these things we're looking at, to e-commerce portals for being able to actually go order, and then all the way downstream through the journey of, okay, I've placed said order, however that's happened, when is it going to arrive? Where do I need to be? Providing visibility into that with cylinder tracking, asset tracking, kind of along the entire way, which again is using a bunch of different technologies, pulling from different industries, but everything from barcode. I've seen kind of RFID tags a little bit here and there. There are all sorts of other challenges there, so don't take that and run with it. But again, at the end of the day, then bringing in the visibility and the best way to surface that tracking, be it web, mobile, again, meeting customers where they are, a lot of text technology, SMS technology. Like I said, we've built a chat bot to help with offload some of these functions to answer some of the repetitive questions. And then a lot of back office innovation as well. A ton of integration work to kind of digitize these transactions end to end and get out of manual processing of everything from orders to invoices to purchase orders, and automate a lot of that using, in some cases, image recognition, in other cases, kind of AI layered on top, to pull out the useful information from these potentially physical documents at times. So a lot of the different technologies you kind of see out there and bringing them together in this industry to create kind of an end-to-end seamless digital transaction for customers.
Wow. What I'm like hearing is, it's communication, simplifying communication, simplifying communication, whether it is with the product, whether it is with the customer, whether it is backend, but just simplifying it and just taking away that manual part. That's what I'm hearing. Is that, did I hear it right?
Yeah, I mean, that is a huge piece at the end of the day. And, us technologists are always the best at communicating, typically, not actually, but yeah, I think that again, goes hand in hand with just meeting the customer to understand what they need and what they want. And many times it is not, I don't need this huge whiz bang technology, as long as you communicate with me to let me know and understand when there's going to be a delay, when something's not going to show up, within reason. Of course, I think the pandemic has taught us a lot of that, and customer expectations have shifted and changed, for sure, because of all of the impacts of supply chain challenges and things like that. So I do think a lot of it comes down to just realistic communication, to keep our customers informed.
This is everybody is talking about it, so I will ask this question, is that COVID did disrupt a lot of industries. I don't think it had a big impact on your industry. I don't know. I'm just assuming it did. Probably not as much as it had on hospitality industry. So now that everything is coming back to normal, there is a new normal definitely, but things are coming back to normal. Have you seen some remarkable, substantial shift in things before COVID and how they are happening today? Or is it the same for your industry? How has it been?
Yeah. The things for our industry that I think aren't unique in any way, shape, or form is really kind of around back to the labor force in many ways. Some supply chain things and things like that. But when come back to the labor force and just this great resignation, or as I saw recently and equated to a little more, this great reevaluation of, people aren't just quitting jobs. Everyone who quits a job isn't just quitting a job. They're reevaluating what's important to them, to then potentially go get another job in many cases, which is why I like the phrase reevaluation as opposed to just great resignation. I think our industry, like many, has been impacted by that. When I look at driver shortages for a number of our suppliers, supply partners who are dealing and facing those issues, to folks working actually in the bottling facilities, fill plants. That's one. And then I think there's been a kind of same thing, reevaluation. We're in hiring phase, as many companies are, and talking with candidates, the questions have drastically changed, drastically changed in importance. A lot of the same questions are asked, but one is a huge impact on, can I work from wherever? What is your in-office policy? All of that. I think that's a big challenge, especially as technology leaders. We have to stay ahead of, if you weren't already there. Another one, a lot more around, again, back to the why or the purpose or values. How do your company values? What's the purpose of the company? How does that align? Which are questions that some folks would ask in the past, but certainly not open and lead with. I mean, I'm getting these questions before folks agree to a Zoom interview, honestly, because they're evaluating the company on much better much bigger things than just my tactical day-to-day. What am I going to do? It's how's this company going to treat me? What is the culture like? How are the other kind of leaders within the organization and team? How are we going to interact? And I think COVID had a huge impact on that, just folks reevaluating what's important to them.
Oh, that's a very interesting insight, that the way people are looking at things in their life has changed. It's an interesting insight. Yeah, we don't look at technology space like that, right? We think,
that's right.
Okay, yeah, it's okay. You can work from anywhere, and that's about it. That solves the problem, but probably not. Wow, interesting. So now my favorite question: that if you have given a lot of insights and inputs to people in general, but what would you say to a younger you if you met him today?
Oh, wow. I just literally just this weekend watched Ryan Reynolds movie that just came out on Netflix that where he travels back in time and is with his younger self. So now I'm like, I have to put that aside and really think about this question hard. I think going again in line with what you just said, a couple things come to mind, but number one, talking to my younger self, I would encourage myself to really focus on, again, the why, not the what. The what is there. There's so much focus, and I was so focused on, this degree, and I want to do this, and I want to, what company allows me to use X technology or whatever. I would really focus and tell myself to think a little bigger and think about why is it you want to do what you want to do? What is important to you that you can then use your skills to actually go solve on a bigger scale? So how can you make a lasting impact, be that with the folks around you and the team you're going to go to aligning with a company that shares the same core values that you do, to being able to make an impact in the world and the lives of just the folks that are there in front of you. I would also say, don't get too intimidated. You're young. It's not that, it is all very important. Don't get too intimidated. Start with what you can in your sphere of influence, and just be a little more intentional about the why you are doing what you're doing. We spend a lot of time at work. We spend a lot of time researching outside of work, spending time on technology. And so being very intentional about what's important to you, so that when you wake up at my age, bald, many years from now, and you look back, you look back and say, you know what, I'm happy with the progress that I've made. I'm happy that I've made an impact. And this sounds super deep. I am. For the record, I'm not sitting here like saying, "Oh my gosh, I've screwed up because I wasn't focused." But I think everybody's going to come weigh in with, "Oh, left, right, make this decision, whatever." I think at the end of the day, being able to look back and say, "I've lived a meaningful life and used my skills towards making an impact and a purpose," I think is kind of the intangible and greatest thing you could do.
Wow. Thanks for that. That was really inspiring, right? So thanks for joining us today, Ryan. Is there anything you want to say as the closing word? Anything that I might not have asked you, but you would like to share?
Oh man, you asked a lot of great questions. I'm trying to think. I think you did a great job asking a lot of the relevant and meaningful questions, and probably I didn't expect to talk about life purpose during this conversation. So I appreciate you pulling that out of me.
Thank you so much. This was Ryan Esparza with us today. And for the audience who are watching this, if you have any questions for Ryan, please leave them in comments and we will take them to Ryan and we'll have him answer those for you. And once again, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to having you again and talking to you again, maybe after your next, big trip.
Perfect.
Yeah, yes. Wish you have a lot of good trips in the coming years. So thank you so much.